This is Cooking with Dave and Audie. I'm Dave.
I'm Audie.
And today's podcast, we're talking about ourselves. Okay, today's podcast, we want to let you lovely people get to know us lovely people in sort of a more personal way than we've led on to in some of our other videos. So we're going to go sort of interview style, ask each other some questions, answer them. Some of it's personal, some of it's professional, some of it's positive, and some of it's negative. But we want to let you get to know us.
Yeah, I think our goal is always to be personable in our videos about food, but those videos have always been, let's talk about the technique. This is more about who we are, what we think about food, what we think about food service, and a little bit of our experience. All right, David, what's your earliest food memory?
Earliest food memory? I was 2 or 3 or 4 years old. My grandparents had a giant backyard and 3 giant pecan trees.
Yeah.
And so when the pecans would ripen, they would fall from the tree. All of us kids, my cousins, my brother and I would pick up all the pecans, load them into buckets, like 5-gallon buckets.
Right.
And then we would process them and, make praline and brittle and pies and roast them and eat them raw, give them to the neighbors, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Fell in love with pecans. Still to this day love pecans. That's my earliest memory of anything food.
Mine's family related too. I was like 4 years old, 5 years old. I told my grandmother that I loved her spiral ham. It was a classic like southern brown sugar glazed spiral ham.
Yeah.
And she made it for every family get together for like the next 15 years, every single meal. And I remember thinking, even as a child, wow, I've influenced our family by simply just mentioning I liked it.
Because you complimented the ham?
Yeah, I complimented the ham, and then it changed our family.
So you ate spiral cut ham like twice a year, every year for your whole life?
No, more than twice a year, like 4 or 5 times. Literally every time the family got together. To the point now, you know what? Not a big fan of spiral ham.
Can't imagine why.
But I love her. I love that it had a family component. It made it real. It was beyond just calories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was more significant than just energy into your body.
Yeah.
What was your first job in the food service industry?
Dishwasher. I was in Colorado visiting my dad. The diner next door, the dishwasher had a terrible tragedy in his family, and he had to take like 6 weeks off. And so my dad was good friends with the owner, and he asked me, hey,
let me borrow your boy to wash dishes.
Can you wash dishes for us, right? I did it like 5 days a week. They paid me $35 under the table. I went and bought a couple of CDs every single day. It was an awesome summer for a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
But it's no joke working in a dish pit.
Yeah, I know. That's where I started also. I was a busser and a disher at an enormous, super high volume seafood restaurant here on the coast.
Right.
And did a little prep work here and there, some maintenance duties, that kind of thing. A dish pit is not a fun place to make a living, especially back then when you're getting paid $5 an hour,
right.
$5.15 an hour, or
right.
getting paid under the table.
Well, let me ask you this then. So you had an experience of working in the industry for a period of time. What made you want to go to school?
Good question. Had been in the industry 3 or 4 years at that point, was a server, training to be a bartender, that kind of stuff. And moved to Austin with my girlfriend at the time and saw an ad for this culinary school on TV.
Right.
Actually made the phone call to ask a few questions. They called me back, asked me to come into the school. And coming up in the industry for that 3 or 4 years, I worked with some great people. There were some people that I looked up to that knew their shit, were tough as nails, always knew what to do,
high standards,
had the experience to never lose their cool,
right.
were tough as nails.
Right.
I wanted to be one of those kind of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I thought that this would be a good advantage for me, to go to school, learn a new craft.
So you're saying that at no time, it wasn't like you had this early desire to be a chef. It was, I saw a commercial, I spoke to him, I saw what the environment was, and decided from that point.
I mean, I liked cooking a little bit, but food really didn't mean much to me at that point, and I didn't really know anything about cooking.
Well, for me, it was, I was building spec houses in Colorado at the time. I wanted to go to school to be a contractor, and I had a bad injury. I fell off of a roof. And
Oh, that sounds like fun.
yeah, and so when I was going through my recovery, I would sit around, watch the Food Network channel.
Yeah.
And it would interest me. I went to a couple of contractors, asked them, hey, what do you think? And they were like, you should expect an injury like this every 10 years. At that point, when I realized my body was going to be destroyed, I had to change my focus.
Well,
you and I were very good friends.
Yeah.
You just started the school, and you were raving about it.
Yeah.
And I liked food on an analytical mind. I like the science and the thought process technique behind it.
Yeah.
I just never done it before.
Yeah, and well, that's beside the point. What did you take away from school, your experience in school?
Technique was the single biggest thing that I learned when I was in school. I always tell people that our school wasn't about sitting around memorizing standardized recipes. There are
Very much,
standard recipes that you know by memory from going to school,
Mhm.
but it was always the technique. And that's, I think, really why our channel focuses so heavily on being technique forward,
Yeah.
right? It taught you, really, for me, it was an eye-opening experience about food safety and sanitation, which falls into the idea of a chef should have standards. And
Yeah.
so I got a lot from culinary school.
I did as well. It sort of opened up this whole world that I was unaware of
Right.
of food and cooking that I had never even sniffed even a little bit, had no idea it even existed. And then, delved into it. What I take away from school is a few lessons. Like you were saying, technique. When you work in a restaurant, especially if you learn in a restaurant, you're on the clock. Every dish that you make has to turn a profit. And so it's not a good environment for making mistakes as you learn.
That's a really good
When you
point.
make two harsh mistakes, you just get fired. So you
Right,
don't have a
right.
great opportunity to learn. So school was this separate environment where you could make mistakes, you could experiment, you could practice and practice and practice without losing somebody's money or losing your job.
It
That's
was
what
a
it was there for.
nurturing environment, for sure.
And so what I take out of school is by the time I left school, I had some experience with all of the practical applications of cooking and the techniques involved. Hadn't mastered any of them,
Right.
was proficient in most of them, and
Right.
still suffering in others. But it sparked my desire to learn and devote my life to food.
Well, yeah, to the point that you made, the getting in the mindset of I'm always going to learn about food, that foundation was built at school.
So here's a good question.
All right.
Do you remember a moment or a time and a place that was that moment that you fell in love with food? You found your passion for food.
It was, for me, it was at school, and it was when we did shortbreads.
Sweetbreads.
Sweet shortbreads, sorry. Sweetbreads. Sweetbread is the thymus gland of veal, and it's what they call offal or offal. It's organ meat, and I came from I did not have any kind of sort of palate. I wasn't exposed to
Or
a lot of,
experience with that in your normal
without
life?
a doubt. And it was the time where I was like, I told myself, well, listen, you have to try it.
Yes.
You have to try it. And I ate it, and it was delicious. And it was a revelatory moment in my mind where I was like, you can't prejudge anything about food.
Yeah.
You can't. This completely, dude. We served mollejas at your wedding.
Yeah,
you know
we
what I
did.
mean?
Yeah, we
like did. We never. I never would have been that person had it not been for an experience like that.
Mine is very similar. That's weird. Very similar. So in school as well, you were in Garde Manger. I was a little bit earlier in school with my experience.
Right.
One of the first classes you take is a classroom class where you start to learn about the kitchen and ways to run it, the equipment involved, and the different food things. And there's an opportunity for all the students during that class to go to the school's restaurant, which is like a fine dining restaurant.
Right.
With a chef instructor as a chaperone in small groups, 3 or 4 or 5 students with a chef instructor. And you're meant to have a meal together and be able to ask the chef questions and just have a chat as people
Right.
rather than instructor, over students.
Right.
And at that meal, I ordered a steak, and that steak was being served with a slice of foie gras tournade on top, which is like a fattened goose liver that's poached into a sausage and then melts on top of the steak. It's delicious,
Right.
one of my favorite things. I'd never had it before. I had some very terrible versions of liver and thought I didn't like liver, so I asked the server to leave that off of my plate, that foie gras. The chef instructor told the server to serve it to me, and then when our food arrived, he coerced me into tasting it.
Right, yeah.
And he basically said, just taste it. If you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to eat it, but you should taste it. That's what we're here for.
Right.
And I tasted it with a bite of my steak, and it was one of the most delicious things I had ever put in my mouth. It was rich and buttery and creamy and succulent and delicious, and it was an explosion of flavor that I was this close to never experiencing. I was this close to not tasting it. I could have never tasted foie gras for my whole life.
Right.
And it's one of my favorite things now.
But I think
and so I could have shut myself down to all these great pleasures that came from just trying new things, which isn't that bad. And if you don't like it, that's okay. But you never know how much you might enjoy something.
Well, and to that point, once you have that experience, where for me it was the chicken fried sweetbreads. For you, it was the foie.
Yeah.
Once you have that experience where food startles you,
Yeah.
right? At that point, you can never go back.
No.
You can never go back to not trying something.
No, that's the very moment I was like, you know what? This is a thing.
Right.
Like, I'm here, I'm in it. Now I have to really go for
Right.
it. And I made a conscious decision at that moment, that very moment. I'm going to taste everything.
Right.
You know, for the rest of my life, I'm going to devote myself to this thing, and I'm never going to skip over putting something new in my mouth.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. So, hey, what was your first chef's job?
First time paid being a chef was at a sort of a neighborhood style bistro, small dining room, great ingredients. We were one of the first restaurants at that time in the city to be buying our produce from local farmers.
Right.
We were one of the only restaurants buying in whole ingredients like whole fish, whole chickens, that kind of stuff. And I was fairly fresh out of culinary school, so I still thought I was a rock star.
Right.
And so I was pretty ambitious and hungry and driven, and made some great food. Actually, I'm pretty sure we worked at that restaurant together. I'm pretty sure that was your first chef job too.
That was my first chef job as well.
And the way it broke down was Audie ran the daytime kitchen, I ran the nighttime kitchen.
Yeah.
But we both had the opportunity to do creative things.
There was no limit. Like, I could run my menu, you could run your
Right.
menu as a feature.
Yeah.
You know, you or I or all of us would go with the executive chef owner out to the farmer's market to buy produce. At no point was I ever told, no, you can't run that dish.
We could do whatever we want with the ingredients that we had on a daily basis.
Right.
And challenge ourselves to grow and try new things and develop our craft.
And I've described that job. What was exciting was it was a mystery box challenge for
Every day.
over a year.
Yeah.
So like every day you would be like, all right, well, you know what? We still haven't done anything with the turnips. We have to do something with turnips.
So what he means
now
is
you got to.
What he means is mystery box. Every day we would walk into the restaurant, not really know exactly what we have in the restaurant because there were always things coming and going because we were buying locally, and take a quick look around the kitchen, your pantry, your coolers, see what you got, and then put something awesome together with it.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so much fun for us to do our mystery box challenges.
It's why we like
videos.
Honestly, yeah. I remember one time at that place. To give you an example, was, you know, I'm getting prep ready for the restaurant, this, that, and the other, and then chef walks in and he was like, guess what I got? Drops a case of California lamb.
Yeah.
Like lamb chop.
Yeah. Now
And
do
he's like,
something with this.
you're cooking lamb chops today. Let's figure it out. And we both did lamb that day. We both did it completely different.
Yeah.
But it was like we were playing around with the same ingredients. You know?
So that was your first chef's job, and mine
Definitely.
also.
Definitely.
And from that day until today, what does it mean to you to be a chef? Philosophically or professionally or personally, what does it mean to you to be a chef?
I think I'm going to let you elaborate on this a little bit more because I think you put a really fine point to it. Standards. Like when if the question is what's the difference between a cook and a chef,
Right.
then standards is definitely
It's
high.
one of the big ones
It's
for
one
sure.
of the big
There may
answers,
be
right?
others, but that is definitely one. Yeah.
Having a certain level of skill set, and being a technician with your tools, oftentimes like a knife, basically.
Right.
Having a developed palate is also very important. What do you think about when you think of those? Are all like, I guess, on a sort of philosophical things like being a chef on a professional level.
Right.
You're setting you're setting a standard by the way that you operate in the kitchen.
Right.
So it's just, being in uniform, being on time, leaving your personal shit at the door and just doing. But these all fall into like just general food service requirements.
Yeah, they do. So to me, I think there a philosophical way and a professional way. The philosophical way, and this is just me, but this is how I view it. To be a chef is to make a lifelong commitment. It's to live and breathe it every single day. And it's not an easy commitment. It takes sacrifices. Being a chef, working in restaurants to make a living, you're always underpaid, you're always overworked. You miss weddings and funerals and family get-togethers and beach parties and birthdays. You work on your birthday, you work on Jesus' birthday, you work late nights, early mornings, weekends and holidays. It takes a real commitment, and me having made that commitment consciously, I can accept all those things. I'm happy to do that. That's the decision that I've made.
Yeah.
But you have to devote yourself to it, and I make an example of, you got to make a commitment so dear that it's like the way a priest commits himself to the church or to his religion.
Right.
It's a lifelong commitment. It requires a lot of personal sacrifice.
Right.
And if you make that commitment properly, it requires a lot of self-discipline. Like a chef must constantly be learning, constantly be practicing, constantly be developing his skills. It's a trade, it's a craft. You don't just master it and you're done. There's always new skills to build. There's always new things to learn. So philosophically, that's what it means to me. Practically, professionally, it means something very different. So I think one of the most important things is strong leadership skills. Because to be a chef is to be a leader. The word chef, it literally means captain, loose translation, but literally means captain.
Yeah.
In the sense of, in a military sense, because that's how the kitchen was run back then.
Right.
So leadership skills are super, super important. I think also personal skills, people skills, having an ability to inspire people to challenge themselves and to practice at home in their own time, being able to motivate people to do something that's difficult in a way that doesn't include money, because you can't always just pay everybody what they think they're worth, even if you wanted to. So to be able to motivate people to challenge themselves in a positive way is very important as a chef. But it requires all kinds of crazy skills. You got to be good with numbers. You got to be good with planning and logistics.
Yeah.
You got to be good with sort of setting expectations and holding people accountable and enforcing strict discipline so that you can be successful and everybody knows what the job is and everybody's held accountable for doing their job and supporting the team, that kind of stuff. It gets into all kinds of other things, but generally that's kind of what it means to me to be a chef.
Okay, so we've been able to tell you, and I really love the idea of the point that you made about transferring knowledge over. That's a huge part of being a chef.
Yeah.
But you kept saying like how to inspire people and motivate people to work and do it correctly, right, in a safer way, things like that. That is so fundamental. In fact, I would venture to say you're not much of a chef if you don't do that for your crew.
Not a good one, not in my mind anyways.
So we described what it is for us to be a chef. Who is it that inspired you?
That inspired me, like as a chef?
Yeah.
Well, it would have to be people that I've worked with, and it'd have to be people that I've never even met. So people, I made an example earlier of wanting to go to school, wanting to challenge myself, develop skills. I worked with a group of people that really inspired me. And here's why they inspired me. They knew their shit.
Yeah.
They had a high level of knowledge.
Yeah.
They had a high level of practice. So practiced that it seemed to me they never lost their cool. No matter what was going on, they always knew exactly what to do and how to do it to overcome whatever obstacles were being put in front of them. They were tough as balls. They never lost their cool. And that inspired me to be that kind of person. That made me want to challenge myself to be one of those people. And I was willing to make sacrifices to become one of those people. And then there are people I've never met, people you may have watched on TV or heard about or something, or read their book.
Right.
So there's people like, I'd have to say one of the main ones is Anthony Bourdain. I saw him travel the world, and his whole message was, food is very, very different geographically, and that doesn't make it better or worse or any other thing.
Right.
It's magical, really. to travel the world and have this opportunity to literally taste people's culture, to literally drink people's culture, because food and drink is so closely related to whatever culture is established. There are people, you know, Gordon Ramsay, Jamie Oliver, Marco Pierre White that you see on TV, Andrew Zimmern, those kind of people. You take lessons from each of them, you know, they definitely do inspire me. And then there are the sort of, you know, the legendary people, the legends.
Right.
So people like Heston Blumenthal, Ferran Adria, Thomas Keller, Hubert Keller, Eric Ripert, Wiley Dufresne, Tom Colicchio.
Yeah, I would definitely put Tom in
people
in
that just
category.
People that through their own personal influence in food and dining changed the course of the future of food forever.
Right. Literally changed food.
As one man or one woman, there are definitely women that are great chefs that I haven't mentioned.
Yeah. So I would say, I would echo a lot of what you described. Again, there's people that you've worked with that have inspired you. There are people that you've never worked with that inspired you. There are people you've only read about that inspired you. Escoffier is fucking fascinating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, lots would. People that I've worked with, one chef instructor in particular, Chef Mims.
Chef Mims, the man, the legend.
The master. That man was a beast. Not only could he produce food at such a high quality, he could produce volumes of food that you wouldn't even believe. He had the most amazing temperament. And what I find with the chefs that I really admire and am inspired by are the ones, like, it's like that joke of why did they whisper? To make you listen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was so even-keeled, so not quite in the kitchen, but never raised his voice, isn't throwing fucking
It kind of goes back to what I was saying. This was a man that was a real chef.
Yes.
He really inspired people that to begin with were disinterested to becoming interested, and then making sacrifices to learn and develop their skills. And every breath and every word and every action, everything he put his hands on exuded passion, and it rubbed off on people.
You talked about leadership with a chef.
Yeah.
And you think of leadership in the idea of you want these men and women to go into battle with you. Mims had that in fucking spades.
Yeah, he did.
He could look at, what was great about Garde Manger is you had a little freedom to make food, design food. You weren't necessarily following a recipe, right? And he could have a way where he would look at the food, taste it, ask you, well, what do you think about it? Do you like it? Why do you like it? What brought you to this place? And then, great poker face. Never tell you one way or the other what he thought about it, but he got you thinking and engaging.
And that was probably the whole point, to get you to think about what you're doing.
Are you thinking about it?
Yeah.
Mims, forever. I will always admire that man. You named basically all of my favorite chefs. I want another shout out for Heston Blumenthal and Chef Adria, because they literally changed food.
Yeah, they did.
The modern cuisine that has taken root and exists now is because of two men. You know what I mean?
And had a big influence on both of us.
Without a doubt.
So let me ask you a tougher question.
All right.
Have you ever had any failures as a chef, as a professional?
I still constantly fail. I mean,
So do I.
Failure is huge. Yes. The failure that I hate, that I hold hardest, is we catered a wedding for a buddy of ours' sister. She wanted a creamy marsala sauce with mushrooms.
Yeah,
right?
white marsala sauce with mushrooms.
And so, I forget what it is. It's 200, 250 people. We're
like
busting through a prep. We're killing everything, really. We've gotten the sauce where we like it, and we've got like a gallon of it or more, right? And what we did, like fucking idiots, was put the mushrooms into the sauce and leave it on low. So because there was no agitation, because it was being simmered, all the mushrooms sunk to the bottom and scorched.
They burned.
And even worse than that, we still served it.
Yeah, well,
And
we
so
were sort of
as-
early in our career. At
without
that
a doubt.
We'd never do that now.
Definitely
lesson,
not.
Lesson learned.
No, they're just not getting the sauce. If that's the worst thing, we're just yanking it. At
That's
that
weird.
point.
You still hold that.
It drives
hold that.
me.
You
It
still
really,
think about it. That
because
was a long time
because it
ago.
was a technical failure and then it was a failure of standards.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why it really hurts. What about you? What do you think when you think
so
of?
you were there for this one also. We were
Yeah.
Audie and I were doing a Texas beer dinner at a restaurant we were working at. It was a 5-course dinner. Each course was paired with a beer as a beverage, and each course had a beer in it. And the beer it was paired with was not the same beer that we put into the food itself.
Right.
And we were on course number 4.
Right.
The last thing that needed to go on the plate before it goes out to the dining room is some beautiful, succulent, seared and roasted black drum.
And just to point out real quick, this was a multi-course dish. So meals. So these were small plated. Like
It was a
these,
5-course dinner, so the portions were fairly small. This
These
was
are
like a 3-ounce
beautiful,
portion of fish.
beautifully hand-cut pieces
Yes.
of fish,
And
perfectly
cooked,
roasted.
Pulled them out of the oven on 2 big sheet pans, walking around the corner of the kitchen, and slipped on a little wet spot or a little greasy spot on the floor. And both of the pans went up in the air and shit went everywhere. Time slowed down. I was in
God.
slow motion going, no!
Right.
And all the fish hit the floor. I didn't hit the floor. I kind of caught my balance, but and then we quickly had to figure out, get some more fish portioned out, get it cooked off, get it onto the plate. We adapted quickly, but our
Yes.
plate went out 4 or 5 minutes late, something
It
like
was
that.
definitely late.
It dragged a little bit, which isn't great, but it's a lesson learned, and the lesson is this. No matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you plan, no matter how good your skills are, no matter how much experience you have, there are always things in this industry,
Right.
or in life really,
Right.
that you just don't expect. You can't plan for, you can't account for, you can't have some sort of backup plan for these kinds of things that go wrong. And it shows true character and true experience to be able to adapt and overcome
Without a
those
doubt.
kind of obstacles, because that's just a part of this industry. That's just a part of life.
Well, to that point of failing, have you ever been in a place where you felt like you fell out of love with food, or you became dispassionate about? And it could even be like dispassionate about the food service industry as a whole. Like,
Yeah, I definitely have. I've definitely 100% given up on food. Gave up that commitment that I was talking so strongly about earlier. Little bit personal. When I got divorced,
Yeah.
that's when it happened.
yeah,
I kind of saw my life going one way, and then one day it all turned around, and it just wasn't going to be that way. And I was in a tailspin about life and my profession and some of the decisions I had made and the way I saw my life going. And it was a tough time for me, really tough time for me. I did not give a shit about food or my
Yeah.
profession or my trade for a while there, for a good while. It
Yeah.
took a while for me to rebuild that passion, to rebuild that sort of commitment again, because I had lost it. It was definitely gone.
Well, so I don't know that I ever got to a place where I was totally dispassionate about food or lost a love of food, but to the point that you said about how it's got to be a focus of your life where you're constantly gaining and learning and growing.
Yeah.
There have definitely been times where I have put cooking way on the back burner, like nowhere near close to the most, and the kind of devoted time you need to put into something like that.
I think
you
it's
know?
the same for you and me. I think our passion for food is also connected to the rest of our passions in life.
Right.
Or our passion about life in general, our
Right.
passion about our friends and our family and our loved
But
ones.
that's the thing, it's like you become a single parent or whatever,
Yeah.
and you got to focus on that.
Yeah.
I went into the oil field for a year trying to save up money to buy a food truck. You know what I mean? So the goal was food related, but I'm
Right.
not doing fuck all in food for
Right.
over a year.
I've definitely found that as some of my other passions in life are broken down or come and go, my passion for food also kind of has these ups and downs.
There's ebbs and flows to it,
Yeah.
absolutely. But at no point will food never be part of my life.
No,
it can't
no.
at this point.
It just wouldn't be possible. Yeah.
It's always gonna be there. So.
So that's what you love about food. What do you love about just food in general, the world of food? It could be philosophical, it could be, things about cooking or cuisine, but just about food in general.
Well, and I think you would probably agree to this. It just brings people together. Like, I love the community that is created around food. You had talked about it before, like when Anthony Bourdain is doing his travels and he's going through all these different amazing regions across the world or whatever. The thing that is always there is community.
Yeah.
There's never one guy that's
No.
eating by himself.
No.
They're always brought
And
together.
as people eat together, it strengthens those personal
Without a doubt.
relationships
Without a
in a
doubt.
very strong way.
Yeah. So I love that aspect. We could talk specifics, like I love braised food. You know what I mean? Braised food
As far as the
is
kind of
so
food you enjoy
delicious,
eating
right?
yourself, yeah.
You made a stew last night. Stews are good.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you want to get specific, you can talk about it forever. I think the idea is still, let's get together. Let's break bread. Let's eat together. Let's talk, converse, laugh, cry. I love that.
That is definitely one of my favorite things about food. It's just one of my favorite things about life is sharing food with other people.
Without a doubt.
And the only thing that I would add on top of that is the world of food is this giant world. It's sort of infinite even, and it's magical and mysterious. So you could study food for your whole life.
Yeah.
And never see it all, do it all, think about it all. There's always something new that can be done, a new technique, a new piece of equipment, a new ingredient, a new
That's
flavor
true.
combination. It could get even more specific than that. You could devote your life to a small segment of the food world, like mushrooms or
Right.
cheese,
Right.
and study that for your whole life and still not even, know it all.
Right.
So it's this never-ending thing to do and learn and master and research and grow. And I like that because you can never be it all, know it all, have done it all.
So, specifically about the food service industry, what is it that you like?
About the professional world of food,
Like, yeah, right. Whether it's working in catering, working in a restaurant, you're doing your own food truck, like,
so once again, I think I would have to start with the people. So working in food service professionally is a very high pressure, high stress environment.
right.
It's a melting pot of personalities
Yeah.
and age groups and upbringings and life experiences, and it brings a very diverse group of people together and puts them in a tight space for long hours under a stressful
Under a
situation.
lot of stress, right.
And so you develop a family. The people that you work with, you spend more time with than your own family, and these people become lifelong friends.
Yeah.
Some of those people it become your brothers or your sisters,
Yeah.
or your niece or nephew. You
Yeah.
know, it's amazing how just working with people, even in a high stress environment, can bring people together in such a way. Because you work in an environment that if you don't support each other as a team, as a
Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
everyone flounders. Makes it harder for everyone to do their job. But if you do support each other as a team and a family, and really care about each other, not just professionally but personally, it really does become a family.
Right.
And it becomes so awesome to go to work and to spend your time with these people and get to know them, and then them getting to know you. But there are other rewards. One of my very favorite things, the way I think I will leave my mark on the world, is having taught people new skills, practical skills that apply in the real world.
Right.
That sort of knowledge passed on from me to other people, and then from them to other people, from them to other people, and in that way I leave my mark on the world. It really is awesome.
I completely agree. It's the people that you work with, honestly, which really, really. Food service employees are a different breed of people. They are expected to put on a veneer of the most professional
Right.
possible
Yeah.
you could be, while also, like you said, tight corners, interactions,
Even a dangerous work environment with
Yes.
flames and
Yes.
sharp knives and boiling hot oil and
And David, to his credit, David has always had the most amazing analogy for what a food service is, and it is it's the superorganism. Do you want to give him an idea of what you mean by that?
So it's a superorganism, and the literal definition is a community of individual organisms living as one organism, so that each individual is completely committed not to themselves but to the group.
To the greater goal.
To the
So what would be
group.
Yeah, what's an example of a superorganism?
So bees, ants, that kind of
Right,
stuff.
okay.
Like there are lots of other examples, but basically every individual's sole purpose in life is to support the colony, the group, whatever it is.
Right.
And I think about restaurants the same way. If us as food service employees completely devote our individual efforts to the team, the greater good, rather than our just individual wants and needs, the whole thing works so much better.
Without a doubt. And so, I'm going to jump another question. I know I just told that one. I just want to give a shout out to the current co-workers we work with. We don't have to say the restaurant if you don't want to.
Right.
Excellent fucking people. I love working with them. And like you had said with the relationship, Jones, one of our all-time favorite people we've ever worked with in the food service. I hadn't seen her in a couple of years probably. Was at the restaurant. It was like full body hug. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was like a family member you hadn't seen in
It is
years.
exactly like a family member. They mean that much to you.
That's
They
exactly
really
right.
do.
So, favorite flavors.
My favorite
I know
flavor.
that was your question, but I
Easy.
love this question.
Number one favorite flavor. American smoked salt cured bacon. I've never put anything in my mouth that tastes better than
There are
that.
a lot of people that watch this video right now that knows that's true.
Yeah, definitely. Second favorite flavor is a nice ripe pineapple. It's juicy, it's acidic, it's sweet, it's tangy, and it sort of drips down your mouth. I love it.
Yeah.
Third favorite flavor, probably not appropriate to talk about, Audie.
Yeah, we're gonna cut. That was very cute. I'm kind of the same way. I have a savory and a sweet. For the sweet, I love honey. I love the flavor of honey.
really good, yeah.
So delicious.
Yeah.
It's like because I'm not huge. I'm not a super sweet tooth kind of person.
No, neither of us are. Yeah.
But honey, it just rides that line, right? I love it so much.
There's more than just sweetness to it, though. There's so much other flavor.
Plus,
Yeah.
it's one of the few foods that never goes bad. It properly
It's an
handled.
amazing food.
It's an incredible food. And I mentioned it earlier. I love braised meat. I like when the collagen, the connective tissue in the meat melts away through slow cooking.
Yeah.
And when you're eating some delicious food and you lick your fingers, smack your lips sticky.
It's all your
unctuous.
fingers get sticky, your lips get sticky
It's
from
so
the
good. So that's
Yeah,
that's not a specific thing, but it's God.
So that's your favorite flavor. What's your favorite fruit?
I think you have an excellent answer with pineapple. Pineapple is hard to argue against. I think it's kind of boring, but I love strawberries. I just have always loved strawberries.
I love strawberries. What's your favorite vegetable?
It's got to be the onion.
Onion?
It has to be.
So onion is definitely my favorite vegetable.
It has to be.
It's so versatile. You can do anything with it. I've put onions in desserts that were really good.
Yeah.
And my favorite fruit has to be tomato for the same reason. It's so versatile. You can do anything
Right.
with it.
Right.
More than any other fruit, tomato is the most versatile that I've ever come across.
Yeah, no, those are all we could do a whole fucking hour-long podcast on the foods we like.
Yeah,
like
sure.
if we did like a top 10 thing,
Yeah.
which maybe we should do down the road. 'Cause
Maybe.
I kind of like that idea. Okay, real quick. Pet peeves. What is it about food culture, food distribution, food service industry? What is it about the overarching, the big F
So
food
there's
that bothers you?
There are lots, okay, but there's one that I think you and I strongly agree on.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that
All
one
right.
first. So to me, food is not fashion, okay? It's
Yeah,
it's about flavor.
I don't mean to laugh. I've heard this rant like 20 times.
It's
Go ahead.
about flavor, it's about nutrition, it's about pleasure, it's about all kinds of
I
things.
agree.
It is not a fashion though. And in the world of food, for some reason, there are these giant trends that come and go just the same as fashion.
Right.
And some of those trends are things like, let's go back and forth a little bit.
Okay.
So a big one for a long time, and you still see it today, is things like mango salsa, papaya
I
salsa,
hate it.
pineapple salsa.
Sweet
on
salsas,
things.
right?
Sweet salsas.
Okay, I'm gonna throw you a curveball. A pesto made with something other than basil that
Yeah.
is green.
Right? If there's cilantro and asparagus in it, I'm sorry, it's not pesto
If it's a sweet
sauce.
tea pesto, that's not pesto.
Yeah, it might be delicious, but it's not pesto.
All right.
There are things like all the pomegranate seeds
God, that
were
was
huge
forever.
for a while, just sprinkling pomegranate seeds on top
Well,
of
whoever
things.
the asshole was that said that every sandwich or hot dog had to be on a pretzel bun for like
pretzel bun.
18 months.
Yeah, man, if you could be that guy, can you imagine?
If you just got 25 cents for every one sold.
I mean, that's a few examples. There are many, many others, but those are
The trends.
sort of examples of
The trends that pop
come and
out of
go
nowhere.
that
Yeah.
just really mean nothing to food.
And honestly, it's got to have something to do with social media culture.
It's probably marketing, yeah. And one of my other pet peeves is this is one of my things that to me separates amateurs from pros, but people putting a sweet component on every dish that they make. Everything that they make has some
God.
sweetness to it in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah.
And I kind of view that as an amateur, someone that's still learning.
Yeah.
Because you haven't yet developed that sense of restraint. You don't yet have the self-discipline to restrain yourself from just putting all kinds of things
You and I
on
may
plate.
have worked for somebody similar to that
I know
description.
lots of people that do that. Great people.
Uh,
Still learning.
This guy wasn't great, but okay, that's fine. To what I think about pet peeves, I think about it more specifically on a societal level with regards to the food service industry. My pet peeve is the way that food service employees are treated, both by the owners,
Yeah.
the system that's built around it,
Yeah.
and the customers that come in.
So can we make a statement here? We were not planning on talking about this. I don't know if everyone knows that most food service professionals are paid less than minimum wage.
yeah.
Minimum wage means minimum wage, right? Like the
Yeah.
least amount you could pay somebody.
Well, yeah.
So
yeah.
most of the people you interact with in a restaurant are getting paid $2 or $3 an hour,
So the thing about it
and
is,
rely on your generousness
Yes, yeah.
through your tips to be able to raise their kids and pay their bills.
well,
I don't like the way that system is built.
And I think it comes from a lot of different ways, right? So, as a society, we've decided we want to live in a society that has restaurants,
Yes.
right? But we're going to pay servers $2.13 an hour. We're going to pay
Yeah.
busboys and other tipped out employees $5 an hour, that kind of thing, right?
And then we're going to subsidize the salary of some of those employees
By taking money.
from other employees. So
So that's bad. The fact that they don't have that there's not even a discussion of benefits. No matter we have somebody we work with that's been there 19 years. Nobody has ever gone up to her and been like, hey, do you want to talk about you're clearly a very valuable employee in this restaurant, but we're not going to give you a dental vision.
even
anything like that.
if you were
401k.
offered benefits, you can't afford them.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, you can't afford health insurance or
that's
dental
an
insurance. Yeah.
And there's other examples, like we live in Texas, so like TABC is the so what does that acronym stand for?
Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission.
That's right. So it's a commission that oversees making sure that restaurants sell alcohol
responsibly,
legally and responsibly.
which is, a good thing.
Which is very good, right? But part of it involves getting a certification from this organization. But it was done because people lobbying for the benefit of business owners wanted to take the liability
Off of the business.
And
Put
put
it
it
on the
squarely
employee.
onto the employee
Yes.
itself.
Plus,
which
the
is
employee
horseshit.
is required to pay for that certification.
Without
out
a
of their own
doubt,
pocket.
yeah, exactly. You got to pay for taking on that liability.
Um,
so
can I say
thing
one more pet
bothered
peeve
me.
of mine?
Yeah, for sure.
Is people that do this as a profession that haven't taken the time and put in the effort to develop their skills. So if you've been a line cook for 20 years and you can't saute something properly,
That's
those
on
are
you.
not the kind of people I want to be around.
Right.
That's on you. That means you don't care enough to put in the effort to learn these skills so that you can be a better professional.
Yeah.
If you've been on a hotline for 10 years and you can't use a knife properly and proficiently,
Right.
you haven't put in enough effort to be an actual professional at your trade. I've worked with people that have been doing this for longer than I have,
Yeah.
maybe even decades longer than I have. They don't have half the skills
They're
and knowledge that I
scary.
have, and I don't say that in an arrogant way. Audie and I try very hard not to come off as arrogant.
You be the judge.
We know that we have, a high level of knowledge and practice and experience, and that really means nothing to the world but our own experience.
Yeah.
But it's hard to have a good, healthy
there's
respect for somebody that's been doing this longer than you, that knows half of what you know.
So there's no intellectual curiosity. If you're there for 20 years and you can't work the fry station because you work the saute line, there's no intellectual curiosity at that point.
It
You
just
are
means that
literally
you don't-
putting in as little possible energy and effort as
Here's
possible.
exactly what it means to me, and this is why it's hard to respect that, is you don't want to be the best that you can be every single day, and you definitely don't want to get better and better at what you do every single day, because
Right.
if you did, you would have taken the time to learn and master these skills. And I don't like spending my time with those kind of people. I like spending my time, especially professionally, with people that want to challenge themselves, that want to put in extra effort, that want to learn and grow and be better and better every single day.
So, moving on, we're almost done, guys. The extracurricular skill sets.
So there are lots of things, because this is a trade, right? There are lots of practical skills
Right.
involved. And so a lot of chefs sort of specialize in certain skill sets. One of mine is blade work. So as I was becoming a chef and starting to make this commitment in my life, I sort of had this thought that basically knife work to me is like the most fundamental practical skill in cooking.
Right.
If you're cooking properly, which is whole ingredients, that kind of stuff, it all starts with a knife.
It's really
Before you apply any other technique or practical skill to it, it starts
Right.
with a knife.
Right.
So I really practice hard with a knife. I got really pretty wicked good
Yeah.
at it. Another thing, and a lot of people don't know this about me, is I do fruit and vegetable carvings.
You do fantastic fruit and vegetable
Most people
carving.
don't even know what I'm talking about. I wish I could make an example, but it's basically taking fresh produce, all kinds of fruit and vegetables, and cutting them down, carving them in such a way to represent some natural object, a flower, an animal, something like that.
To put it this way, this was years and years and years ago, but when I got married, David sat for 18 straight hours to carve an entire table of fruit carving for our wedding, like reception. At that level, you were top 10 in the state, and you might have been up there nationally. But it's like any other skill set. You got to stick to it. You got to work at it.
I
You
haven't
could
practiced
always,
in a long time.
you could always get back to that place and even better
Yeah.
than that place. But at that time, you were. Now he ended up getting like spina bifida because he's like hunched over.
I was sore for like 3 days.
But you were that skill set is outrageous, and you can still bust out.
I would
a can
say
of
one of the things,
that,
and I would
you know.
include you in this, is having put in time, effort, energy, research into learning about and then practicing the skills of modern cooking.
Yeah, there's less than 5% of the world's chefs know anything about modern cooking, and in our region, there's probably 5 chefs in the entire region that know half of what you and I know about when it comes to. So modern cooking is essentially a purely experimental scientific approach to how food reacts. So it deals with stabilizers, protein binders.
Some people call it molecular gastronomy, terrible term. Most people that take it
You and
seriously
I
would never
don't, but
use
that's
that
when
term.
you hear that term molecular gastronomy. That's
But
what
it applies to all
kinds
kinds of things. Basically, this is what it comes down to. The traditional techniques of cooking food, processing food, have been around hundreds of years.
Right.
And they're very well established. Almost everybody knows them. That's normally what's done as far
And damn
as
near
cooking and processing
everybody
food.
does it that way.
Yes. Over time, people develop new techniques, new pieces of equipment, new procedures, new all kinds of things to process food. And sometimes those newer versions of something are better versions versus the traditional ones. And so, like I'd give a great example. The traditional way to cook a steak in a pan.
Right. That's a great point.
Slap it down on a pan, leave it for 4 minutes, turn it over one time, leave it for 4 minutes, pull it out of the pan, it's done.
Right.
Where there's a more traditional way, the 15-second, 20-second sear, which is constantly be turning it every 15, 20 seconds, it achieves better results.
Right.
And it is exactly the opposite of what tradition says you should do. And going back to me to saying take this profession seriously, be constantly learning, practicing, developing your skills. If you are not out there learning these new techniques and practicing them, you can't know if one way is better or another. And so if you take it seriously, you should try everything and then always work from what achieves the best results for what you're going for. And a lot of those best results are done through modern
And
techniques.
I would say for me, it it's kind of right there, which is the idea of not only do I need to learn it because I'm constantly growing as a chef, but that I am fearless in trying it.
Yeah.
That technique. So everybody probably saw through social media when every cake was getting mirror glazed for about. Now that's a trend, by the way, that I actually think is pretty sexy.
It is a
but
trend,
it is most definitely a trend, right?
But it's a great technique also.
But it was a technique that you had to learn. As soon as I saw it that week, I was in the fucking kitchen and I was doing mirror glazed cakes. You can see them on Facebook.
A couple of great examples of what we're talking about, making this commitment to constantly be learning. Some of the fermentations we've done. We've never done fermentations until a couple of months ago.
Right.
Doing our blindfolded taste test challenges. We take our tasters pretty seriously. We think we're pretty good at tasting food. Never tasted it blindfolded.
Right.
So now we challenge each other to grow our skills, to become better tasters, to be able to better identify flavors in food, makes us better at what we do. And it's sort of extreme, that level of practice, but it really counts. It really makes a difference.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's skip this because we kind of talked about it. And let's talk about this.
Okay. Is cooking an art or a science?
Well, without sounding glib, it's both.
It's definitely both.
So you mean like, okay. So
some people say it's one or the other. We say it's both.
I think it totally is. I'm saying the practical act of cooking food can be defined through science.
It's physics and chemistry.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Right. It's converting and denaturing protein strands. You can get straight down to the science of what's actually happening.
It's very complicated chemistry, but yeah, you can definitely do that.
But is there an artistry or an art form within the act of cooking? Absolutely,
yes,
there is, right? Yeah. You telling me when you're watching something like you're watching No Reservation and it's Anthony Bourdain and it's some sort of indigenous tribe that's doing naan bread where they're slapping the bread into a clay pot that they built by their fucking hands? There's not artistry in that? Of course there is. So I guess the answer has to be it's both.
So there's artistry in the way that you overcome challenges, being adaptable, to be able to work with whatever's in front of you to achieve something.
Right.
There's artistry in the creativity of what kind of flavors am I going to combine, or what kind of ingredients am I going to use on this dish. There's artistry in the way you plate and present food.
Right.
There's artistry in sort of the finesse of your hands as you're applying techniques to food. Like the difference in talking about finesse, like the difference between chicken skin on a roast chicken that's golden brown and delicious and looks delicious, but it's not crispy.
Yeah.
Or having the finesse and technique to be able to make it crispy and golden brown and delicious. That kind of finesse, that's art.
So, I completely agree.
But the rest of it, the actual cooking, is science. So maybe it begins with art and ends with art. Like the conceptualizing of a dish is totally artistic.
Right.
The application of cooking the dish is totally scientific.
Right.
And then the way you plate it and present it, once again, is artistic.
And that's the point. Kind of like you were saying with the crispy skin. There's definitely art. I have seen gorgeous food. I mean, we see it all on social media every single day about beautiful food plated.
So then I want to go back to one pet peeve.
Okay.
Because you just made me think about something. I hate is my peeve, this sort of modern trend of every dish has to be completely deconstructed on the plate. You see people plating food with forceps, which is like clinical little tweezers.
Right. And
they place everything just so and just this way, and everything it's just perfectly placed on the plate individually. And I don't like that. Now, some of it can look very beautiful. I give it that, but I don't like that attitude about how you treat that food.
Right.
I think no matter how hard you try, if you plate food in that way, it's always contrived. There's this level of like arrogance about it in some way or another.
Yeah.
I think food looks best as if it looks like it just fell naturally onto the plate in that way. To me, that is more sexy to me.
I've seen versions of thoroughly thought out plating that blew my fucking mind.
Yeah.
On the whole, normally.
Yeah.
Like Heston Blumenthal's Mad Hatter tea turtle soup. That is clearly in the vein of what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is.
It's absolutely
but it
fucking
works.
stunning,
it works.
right?
Yeah.
99 times out of 100, I'm plating the plate just like you say it.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure that it looks appetizing, delicious, and.
So we're talking a little philosophical here. Tell me what is your ultimate philosophy about food and cooking? Like, just get it down to one sort of concept or idea. What is your ultimate philosophy?
It's hard to answer that in a bullet point because food means a lot of different things. Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like I've already kind of described my philosophies on food.
Well, I think about it in a very specific way. I would say this: fresh, local, seasonal. Cook,
Yeah.
Buy your food fresh and whole from as local a source as you possibly can, which means it's going to be seasonal, whatever is available for that season. And when you do that, you avoid also, and it's a great thing, all this commercial sort of harvesting and over harvesting of food,
Yeah.
all these sort of GMOs and all the crazy stuff that people talk about in food. If you buy fresh, local, and seasonal, you take yourself outside of all those things, and you give yourself the brightest, most aromatic, most fresh and ripe ingredients you can get your hands on because you're buying it locally.
That is another thing when we were working at that bistro that was so great was the ability to really focus and hone in on it. The fresh local seasonal is absolutely. If you win the lottery tomorrow, you and I open a restaurant, that would be the theme of it.
Yeah, and I think both professionally and personally, people in their own homes with their own families.
Right.
I think that should be sort of the focus. That's definitely my focus. That's definitely how I think about food. That's my ultimate philosophy about food. Fresh, local, seasonal. It's that simple.
And finally, what are you looking forward to in the future when it comes to food service? You as a chef, like, what do you see your future like in the industry and as a whole?
Well, the future of food, I think, is moving in a great direction, and it's actually in some ways moving backwards. We're moving, I think, away from this commercial, industrial way to harvest, process, and distribute food,
Right.
and becoming more local,
Right.
the way we were, 50, 60, 70, 80 years
It does.
ago, maybe 100 years
It
ago.
definitely feels
There's
that
this
way.
big movement
Yeah.
back in that direction, which I think is great, because
Yeah.
I think it's healthier, I think it's better for families, I love it.
Yeah.
Me professionally, the ultimate goal obviously is to own and
Operate
run
a
a
restaurant.
restaurant. Yeah. If I could walk into a restaurant tomorrow and take it over and do it my way, I'd start a revolution.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of money, and it's hard to earn that money and save it. And I'm not blaming anyone or anything. That's just a goal of mine. That would be really awesome.
Do you see any kind of like maybe techniques or ingredients that you're excited about moving forward?
So there is modern cooking makes me very excited
Right.
because it's a more scientific way to think about food, which
Right.
means you can achieve more precise results with your food. And I think there's lots of equipment becoming available, and sometime in the near future is going to be ubiquitous, even in people's own homes. Things
We're
like
seeing it.
thermal immersion
We're
circulators,
seeing
that
it
kind of
already.
stuff.
They sell it at Walmart for like $89.
I seriously think 7 or 8 years from now, an immersion circulator will be as ubiquitous as a microwave.
Fuck
Which will
me.
be amazing because it makes everybody out there will be able to make a perfectly roasted chicken.
Could you imagine?
Perfectly cooked steak. Everybody out there will be able to make Thanksgiving turkey perfectly. It could not be better.
Literally, the success rate of cooking at home will jump in a magnitude.
Yeah,
once
and I
that
think
becomes-
that's an amazing thing. It sort of levels the playing field because
Right.
it takes a lot of the skill that you would had to have had using alternative methods, and
Yeah.
it means you don't have to have those skills. Anybody could do it.
I say I've always, especially now, they have apps connected to the actual tool itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's idiot-proof cooking. Go out and buy an immersion circulator. You have the best one, in my opinion. It's not even the most expensive. The 175
not.
Joule is the way to go. In my
Yeah, it's
opinion.
$175, $180. It's top of the line.
So good.
Does amazing things, and we are going to be getting into that soon. So that's something for you all to look forward to. But tell me about what you look forward to in the future of food or your profession, your career.
Yeah, I don't know. I have the same aspiration. Owning a restaurant would be fantastic. Don't know if that's ever going to happen.
How about having like a hugely successful YouTube channel?
Hey, there you go. that would be a lot of fun too. You know what? With regards to food in general, we hit it over the head a bunch in this podcast, but I'm never going to stop learning about it. There's always going to be something new. I'm going to see something that intrigues me. And oftentimes you'll see, I'll give you an example. So I'm watching a podcast with one of my favorite comedians, and he's doing a morning radio, like, hey, come check me out at this comedy store. And the chef had served fresh fruit that was coated in a vanilla yogurt gelée. And he was freaking out about it. And it just got me thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Fresh fruit.
Now I'm going to try it.
I kind of want to try it now, yeah. And so that's exciting about it is you'll never get bored with food. With regards to techniques and stuff like that, sous vide's gonna revolutionize food. It hasn't. It's revolutionized.
It already has, but now it's going to go and go and go.
Without a doubt. And we're excited to get to show you those things.
Well, we hope that this conversation gave you an opportunity to get to know us on a more personal level, so that what we kind of expected was, as you know us a little bit better, you might be more willing to watch and pay attention to some of the things that we're going to be doing in the future.
We would hope to prove to you that we take this shit seriously. And if we haven't answered a question that's kind of in this topic, or really honestly any other question, hit us in the comment section below. We will respond to you. We're looking forward to taking your recommendations on what to cook. Dave and I are both about to cook a couple of dishes that we like. But you know what? You want to see something? Hit us up. Let us know.
We're cooking with Dave and Audie. I'm Dave.
And I'm Audie.
We appreciate you taking the time to watch us. We hope you learned something about us. We went a little bit personal. We went a little bit professional. But I hope it lets people get to know us a little bit better. Thank you for taking the time to watch our videos. If you like what you see, subscribe to our channel. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. It helps us out. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you want to see, because we'll be doing it in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching.
Have an awesome day.
We really do appreciate it.